business. Here's what the old adage used to be in this field. Here's what it was. It was this way. Get good, get seen, get paid. Okay, that's the way it was. That's not the way it is anymore. I'll tell you the way it is now. Get good. Period. And the reason why that's the case, folks, is that for a number of reasons, the prevalence of the internet being very much on top of that list, for those of you particularly who are working around New York City, getting seen is not an issue. It's not. It can be a huge issue for actors. It can be very tough for an actor to get seen doing good work, but it's not an issue for you guys. And the fact of the matter is that you're being seen all the time. And let me give you an example. At Gotham, which is which in my opinion is the best run comedy club in the city, there's staff meeting every week. Chris Mazzelli, who's the owner, meets with his staff every week, and one of the things on the agenda every week is, did you guys see anybody I should know about? And everybody is in on that meeting. The wait staff, the bartenders, the busboys, as well as the managers. So getting seen is really not an issue. You're being seen all the time. And as a result of that, getting paid is not an issue either. In other words, you get good and you'll get booked and then you'll get paid. So the quest is to get good. And when you get undeniably good, and by that I mean virtually every time you walk into a club, you kill it, you're going to start to get booked. Consistently, undeniably good. That's the quest. And to do that, there are 3 parts to accomplishing that. And they are training, performing, and writing. And let me talk to you about each of those 3. There's something that I urge you to do, which is to think big. And the reason why I say that is because the divisions that exist in other parts of the entertainment industry are not there for comedians and comedy writers. And this is what I mean by this. Meryl Streep can win an Academy Award for Best Actress. Nobody is going to be saying, do you have a script? But once you get noticed as a stand-up, people absolutely want to see your script. What's your movie? What's your television show? And it works in all directions. The same thing happens with comedy writers. Conan O'Brien, had no background as a stand-up. He was a writer for The Simpsons. And when they were looking for somebody to host the show, and Lorne Michaels was involved, he was like, Conan is hysterical in the writer's room. Let's give him a shot. And a comedian is a hyphenated performer. Okay, they are stand-ups, they are actors, they are playwrights, they're screenwriters, they write for television, they produce. Think about somebody like Tina Fey. I mean, that is a successful career. All right, she's on Saturday Night Live. She's a writer on Saturday Night Live. She becomes the head writer of Saturday Night Live. She's performing on Saturday Night Live. And she writes a movie script. and it gets produced and it's good. So she writes another script, except this time she writes in the starring role for her to play herself. So now she's a movie star, and she's a film writer, and then she comes up with a television project. So now she's a producer of. That's what a career in comedy is, and that's why I urge you guys to think big. Where would you like this to take? Where would you like your love and gift for comedy to take you? And give yourself the freedom to answer that question honestly. And then you want to get training in all of those areas so that you're prepared for the opportunities when they avail themselves to you. When I started this workshop, I got calls from casting agents who were looking for comedians to do commercials, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of commercials are funny, and a lot of funny commercials are not really written. They're very often improvised. So the people that I sent over, the feedback I got was they're really funny. They know nothing about going to a commercial audition. You know, the somebody would ask them to slate, and they're like, "The fuck did you slate?" They just didn't know. It's not that they didn't have the ability; they just didn't have the education. So I started the first commercial audition technique class for stand-ups. And then a number of our people started doing really, really well in commercials. When Jim Gaffigan, his transition from his day job, which was with Gray Advertising, you know, he had a lucrative day job, and his financial transition was commercials. It wasn't stand-up. It was the income that he was making with commercials that gave him the freedom to kiss off his day job. I had another student who was signed by a really excellent management company, and she came in, and I said, you know, what do you want to work on today? And she said, I'm flying to LA tomorrow. And then at the end of the week, my managers have set up 3 meetings for me, 1 with the network, 2 with production companies, to present the final pitch of my sitcom. And I'm like, okay, great, what do you want to work on? She said, I don't even know what a final pitch of a sitcom is. I don't have a sitcom. And I don't know what they're talking about. And I said, it's okay, listen, we'll break it down, it'll be fine. You know, here's step 1, we can do step 1 right now. Get on the phone, call your manager, and postpone a meeting. Because here's what you don't want. You don't want to walk into a situation that you're unprepared for. Okay, and you don't know what you're doing. That's different from being in a situation, for instance, where an actor may audition for a role that the director and producer don't think that actor's right for. It doesn't mean they don't think the actor's not a good actor. The actor could be a terrific actor. And in situations like that, or if you're a writer and you're pitching your sitcom, and the production company or the network, they're not into that this season, but they see that you know what you're doing, you've just made an important that door is going to be open to you, even if they don't want it this time around. They know you know what you're doing. But it's when you don't know what you're doing that doors close. And that's why I say to you guys, think big. Where do you want to go with your comedy? Where do you want that to take you? Identify those places and then get yourself training, good training. Great teachers, good teachers are a treasure for you. and when you find them, take full advantage of them. And one of the things that I would say to our one-year students here is that a wonderful thing about getting training in the arts, the performing arts, is that I think the most important doors that can open to you are the doors that are in your own mind. It's realizing I can do that. I know how to do that, and I love to do that, and I'm going to do that. I just think about I had a wonderful student named Drew Wininger who was a writer, and he was auditioning for our one-year program, and there was a lot of performing. I wanted him to understand it wasn't just a writing program; it was also performing. And he said he understood that, and that he felt that it would make him a better writer, which is true. I mean, if you know what a performer is going through, it does make you a better writer. So with that as an understanding, that's how he began the program. He ended up being the best actor in his class. He was on The Sopranos. He had a one-person show that ran off Broadway. And he didn't know that, and I didn't know that. But because he availed himself of the opportunity to get an education in something that he hadn't thought about doing, he realized, I can do this, and I like this. Training. And I've mentioned this before, the folks that have done really, really wonderfully well from here have used this place over an extended period of time. So if you feel like you're getting something out of it, come back. Performing. Performing as much as possible. And let me give you a feeling for the landscape of where you can perform. Okay. So there are open mics. And these are places where the only requirement is that usually that you buy a drink. But anybody can get up. Which sometimes can be problematic in the city for this reason. There are so many name comedians up every night in this town that nobody will go to a comedy show where they don't know anybody. They just, it's not going to happen. So the problem with open mic nights in New York is that more often than not, the only people in the audience are the other comedians waiting to go on. And the problem with that is not that they're too tough an audience. The problem with that is they're not an audience. They're not an audience. They're waiting to go on. It's nobody's fault. It's just that's what it is. And if you go, people will have their pads out. Very often you'll be up there and people are still working on their sets. They're not out to enjoy an evening of comedy. And I will tell you that there can be sometimes there's kind of an open mic culture that you don't want to absorb. Because very often the stuff that can get laughs at open mics is very dirty stuff that won't work particularly well in front of a regular audience, and very jokey joke. And that's understandable. Comedians like a good joke. But jokey jokes, stuff, by that I mean stuff, there's no genuineness to it. It's not like anybody's believing that this is actually you. So you can get discouraged when there's no reason in the world for you to be discouraged, okay? Which is not to say that they're not useful, because they are useful, and they're an inevitable part of your development, just because they're open mics and there's so many of them. So let me give you some guidelines on them. Number one is that some are better than others. And if you ask around, you can ask other people in the workshop here. As you know, there are people who are seasoned. Where are the best open mics? And they'll be happy to share that information with you. And there are good open mics that are run by people who, when you go to them, they say, please, everybody, wait, don't leave after you get up, because sometimes they do their thing and they leave. They have somebody running them who's really trying to get the people there to collaborate and be an audience for each other. And those can be very, very useful. And find out which ones they are. Ask around. And then there's another utility for them, which is it's another chance for you to get up. It's not the shower. You know what I mean? It's a club, and there are people there, and it's a really good place to get comfortable with your material, to get comfortable using the microphone, to get comfortable doing crowd work, to get comfortable with different shaped rooms. All of those things are positive things. There's a comedian that trained with me who told me there were 2 open mics that she went to. One of them was really well run, and let me give you a tip on this. There are some open mics that are not only for comedians. They're for poets, singers, and those are really good, because there you've got people, like the singers and the poets, they're going to love you guys. I mean, and you're going to love it. It's not just the regular group of comics listening to each other's stuff. Those are really good open mics to look out for. But she said that she found one of those, that there were 2 that she went to every week. That was one of them. And the other one was an open mic where, to everyone's knowledge and memory, who the people that have been doing this mic, no one has ever gotten a laugh in the entire history of this open mic. And she really liked working there because there was just no pressure. It's like everybody knew nobody was getting a laugh. It's like, we can relax. And again, just getting that chance to go over your material, getting it in your body, out of your head and into your body. These are all useful things. Now, in smaller cities, or where there aren't so many clubs, very often the open mic will have people who are out for the evening. And anytime you're in front of a real audience, and by that I mean these are people who want to hear comedy, that's going to be a good gauge for you. And if you happen to be in a town that's got an open mic, and you know from what you've learned that they also have a regular audience people, those are great places for you. There are also, and by the way, all of this information is readily available on the internet. It's very well organized on the internet. I mean, it'll have, like, what is today, Monday? It'll have, like, the day and, like, hour by hour where there are open mics. There's one at 4 here, there's one at 4:30. It's very well organized. There are also bringer shows, what comedians refer to as bringer shows, what the clubs refer to as new talent nights. Okay, and this is where you are required to bring a certain number of people. That's the way you get up on the stage. Okay, the plus of these is that there's a regular audience, because you can't get on stage unless you bring people, whatever that requirement is. The minus is you got to keep bringing people, and there's going to be a limit to that. So here's the way to do the bringer shows. What's important for you is stage time. So you want to get up as much as possible. So let me just completely make up a number here. Let's say theoretically there's 30 people in your life that would come to see you in a show. You would be better off doing 10 shows where you only need to bring 3 people than you would be, and very often it's the most prestigious clubs that demand the most people, than doing, 4 shows or 3 shows where they're asking you to bring 8, 10 people. I remember when Caroline's first opened, Caroline's on Broadway, and it was really the first big club in New York City. They were asking people to bring 30 people. Can you imagine? I mean, it was outrageous. 30 people, open your own club. If I could bring 30 people, shoot, get a liquor license and get into business. So you play it out intelligently. You want to get as much stage time as you can. Now, another thing you want to watch out for is that the producers of these shows very often want to get as many comedians as possible because it just builds up the house. So you could bring your guests to a show that's going to go on, for like a couple of hours, which can be tough. So you can find all those things out. You can find out, they'll tell you how many people you need to bring, and you can find out how long the show runs. We have our own show here, in addition to our workshop shows. We have our own bringer show, and it's 3 people, right? It's only 3 people, and the only people who perform in it are our people. So it's a really excellent show, and it's at Gotham. Most of the time, it's at Gotham. And those are great shows, and if you want, and they're like every other week. So if you want to do that, just let David know, or let Michaela know, and they'll get you scheduled. Okay. There are also there are clubs where you can audition. The club that sort of has the finest history of this is the Comic Strip, which has had a legitimate audition system in place for forever. And they've been really, really good at this. And by that I mean, it's a lottery. You just go and you pick a date, and that's when you go. With a lot of the other clubs, they've in a way they've kind of tried to pull off what the improv places do, where like you're in level 1, and then you're in level 1, and then maybe you get to level 2, and there's this thing that you got to go through. By that I mean that you need to do a certain amount of bringer shows before you get an audition. At the Comic Strip, for instance, it's a lottery, and you get a date, and that's when you go. Okay, don't go until you're ready. Don't go until you're ready. And if we're working together around that time, I will certainly let you know when you're ready, and I will get you auditioned at places when you're ready. But don't do it prematurely, because very often, more often than not, people don't get passed onto the pro shows the first time that they audition. But what you want to be you want to be at a level where the feedback you're getting is, I'd like to see you again in 6 months. Keep writing, the feeling is you're a little green, You know, you're not quite ripened yet to be ready for this, but you're on your way. You're on your way. That's what you want. You don't want someone saying thank you very much. And the cover charge, if you ever want to come back here again, is $12. Okay, so take your time. And the thing is, go to the pro shows. On Sunday night, I got Isa an audition at Gotham, the high school kid. And that was what they call their all-star night, which is they're not the big names, but they're good. And I tell you, we stayed for the whole show. We didn't intend to, but it was so good. We just didn't want to leave. So what you want to do is go to that show at a club that you are interested in, and you'll see what the level is. And when you're at a point where you can honestly say to yourself, I can do that, I'm there, then by all means, but wait until you really are. You know, play it smart. Now, let people know that you're doing this. Put the word out. And the reason why I say that is some of you may belong to organizations that they'll be doing a fundraiser, or they'll have some kind of night of entertainment. You want to be in there. Those are great gigs. You want to host them and do your stand-up. You know, comedy clubs are not the only place for you to work out. They're not. If you let people know that you're doing this, Beth Farber, Beth Farber belongs to a temple. They're like using her all the time now with the temple. And that's a good audience. Parties are great. Parties are classic places to try out material. That's been true forever. Comedians have used parties. Those are great places to try out material. Do any of you guys know the 2001-year-old man, the Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner series of comedy albums? They're hilarious. I recommend them to you. Mel Brooks plays a guy who's 2,000 years old, and he's being interviewed by Carl Reiner. They worked out all of that material at parties they went to. You can just do it at work, and here's the key: don't ask people what their opinion is. Don't say, I'm thinking of putting this joke into my act. What do you think? Do not do that. Because this is one field, this is a remarkable field where every human being is an expert. Okay, anyone who draws a breath is an expert at comedy, and of course they're not. Oh God, I remember a student of mine was saying, you know, I did my new stuff in front of my friends, and you know, they laughed a lot, but they said, you know, it's really not funny. I was like, just stop. Wait a minute. They laughed a lot, and then they told you it wasn't funny. It's like the only information that they have that's any value to us is that they laughed. Who cares what they think? So when you try it out in front of friends and family, just do it. And in a situation like that, be an easy marker. You can, by that I mean, sometimes a big smile with one person, that could be a laugh in front of a group of people. You get a sense of it. My neighbor, Carl Kraus, I've tried a lot of stuff out. Hey, Carl! It's a good thing we both do our own lawns. In the clubs outside of the city, let's talk about that. So Einstein had his theory of relativity, and I have my own theory of relativity. Mine is more relevant to you guys than his is. Here's Rosenfield's theory of relativity. The farther you are from New York City, the more impressed people are that you are from New York City.
Okay.
These are really words to live by. So here, and again, don't do this until you're ready, okay? But when you're ready, when you've got like 10 really good minutes, you can start doing this. You can email. The internet is a gigantic thing for you guys. I want to talk to you about because it's what the impact of the internet has been gigantic for performers. What you do is you get a really good video, okay, and it could be a really solid 5-minute video or 7 minutes. It doesn't have to be all that long. It shouldn't be much longer than 7. And it should be one performance. It shouldn't be edited. You know, it shouldn't be the best of, because they want to know that you can sustain 7 minutes out there. And you email it to the manager of the club. And if you say, I'm a New York-based stand-up and I'm going to be in your town on the week of August 20th, and I'd love to get some stage time. If they like it, they'll book you. They look at those things. They look at them. And here's the thing. The question is, for how long will they look at them? In other words, if they love the first 30 seconds, they'll keep looking. If they don't, finito. That's why I'm saying, you know, wait until you're ready. And that's also why I'm saying start with your A material, end with your A+ material, but start with your A material. We've had our students do incredibly well doing what I've said to you. They've gotten bookings all over the country and actually all over the world from this. The internet is huge. What it does is that it allows you at virtually no cost to penetrate the highest levels of the entertainment business. It's mind-boggling. When Leno had his 10 o'clock show with Jay Leno, you guys remember Jay Leno? I have to ask that question. Somebody was really excited to tell me who the Beatles were a couple of weeks ago. I was like, oh really? What are they called? Because he was on prime time, he couldn't do what the Tonight Show had traditionally done, because as you know, the Tonight Show was the big tryout place for new comics who weren't names, but people that the staff felt were ready for that kind of exposure. Well, they couldn't do that at 10 o'clock at night because it's prime time. So because Leno was committed to that function of that people in his position should be helping the new people, he did something online, and they had they had an online version of the Tonight Show, not the Tonight Show, the 10 o'clock show, whatever the hell it was called. And one of our people got booked on the Tonight Show, okay, because he went back to the Tonight Show as a result of the video. And you know something? I don't even think he sent it in. I think they just found it. It's mind-boggling. It's really mind-boggling. I have to tell you this. So, my older son, Ben, is an actor. And he's been cast in a movie. They're looking for someone to play his younger brother. Okay, and Ben's part is kind of the leading role, kind of good-looking, cool guy. And they're looking for somebody a little bit and less self-aware to play his younger brother. So they found somebody on the internet. They found him on the internet. It's his brother. It's Nate. It's my other son. And he somehow, his set, which he did here in the workshop, is up on the internet. And they're looking and they're saying, I think we found the guy maybe who could play your brother. It's like, who's that? Nate Rosenfield. That's my brother. And he didn't, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I mean, he's seriously that's the power of the internet. So you want to use the internet wisely. Okay, you do not want to put everything up there. That is for damn sure. You only want to put up things that you want out there forever, because that's the other thing with the internet, is once it's out there, it's out there for good. So be judicious. But if you get if you get a killer set and you can get the video of it, get it for sure, because you can use it. That is the way you really audition in most areas of this business, is via video. Performing, those are all places that you can perform. There's a couple of other things I want to tell you about performing. The odds are that your first paying gig will come from another comedian. They need somebody to open for them, and they like your stuff. Like, you guys know Andrew Ginsberg, who teaches here. He headlines at Caroline's usually once a year, and he picks the people he likes to open for him, and that's typical. So there's a very easy form of networking, and I know networking can sometimes be psychologically a daunting thing, but here's a really easy thing you can do. You're in a show and you see somebody whose work you really like, tell them. That's a really good way to network. Man, I loved your set. Let them know. Let them know. You want to build up a sense of just collegiality, if that's a word, colleague to colleague with people that you're working with. I thank the wait staff. I thank everybody when I'm in a club. I thank the wait staff. I thank tip the bartender. I'm not saying you should do that. Everybody. I learn their names, and I thank everybody on the way out, and I say hello to everybody on the way in. That used to be an old saying in show business. Always say hello and always say goodbye. Be there. Be a human being. Hey, good to see you. Makes a difference. The difference is this. When your name comes up, they're like, oh yeah, no, she's great. He's terrific. Not like, oh, please. If I wanted cancer, I'd smoke cigarettes. And that's important. I always say to the people, if you're an asshole, you have to keep that latent until you become a star. You wait till you become a star. And when you open up that dialogue with performers who are further down the road, then there's also just great information you can get from them. Like, hey, do you have any are there any open mics that you do that? And that's very easy networking. Very easy. Okay. Training, performing, writing. let me put it to you in its most basic terms, okay? If you have a terrific 5-minute set, okay, you will make nothing. Your income will be zero. If you've got a killer 10-minute set, you're gonna start to make a bit of money around the city. With shows like that show I told you about, the All-Star Gotham show, where everybody's doing, they're all doing about 10 minutes of material, and they get paid. Not very much, but they get paid. You will get paid less in New York than you will when you're on the road. And I'll talk to you about the road when I finish talking to you about writing. And the reason why you get paid less here is because of supply and demand, number one. And number two, these guys who run these clubs know that people's reputations can be made in the city. I mean, anything can happen here. That is the Tonight Show's here now. They're all here except for a couple of them. I mean, there's so much going on in this city, and they know that. So they pay a little bit less than they might otherwise. If you have 20 minutes of good material, and if you know how to MC, you can start working the road, the circuit of comedy clubs. And the way that circuit usually works is that there are usually 3 performers. There's the opening act, who's the new kid in town, who's also the MC. And then there's the featured act, which is the middle act. And then there's the headliner. The headliner is usually somebody with television credits because they're the headliner selling the tickets. So as the opener and MC, you need somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 minutes of really good material. And you have to know how to MC. That's important. We're going to give a workshop, actually. A number of people have asked me, and we're going to be giving a workshop just in MCing, because I want you guys to know that. 2 performers who have the same amount of good material. One knows how to MC, the other one doesn't. The one who knows how to MC is going to get way more work faster. That's a really important skill. The featured act usually does around 30 minutes. And the headliner does 50 minutes to an hour. Headliners, national headliners, make a fortune. Right? Top dollar at Gotham for the weekend, for a big name headliner, is like $40,000 to $70,000 for the weekend. They bring in that money. It's like paying baseball, sports stars. They're bringing it in. You do a set there on All-Star Night, you'll get $40. Yep, there ain't no business like show business. The more good material you have, the more money you'll make. And the more you write, the more good material you'll come up with. And that's just the simple truth of the matter. And this is what I urge you guys, for all of you who are serious about this. You should schedule time during the week to write. And I want to make this point to you. When you're in comedy, you are a business owner. You own your own business. You get good at that business and people are going to start to pay you. And you want to approach it as a business. You want to invest the time, the spirit, the effort, the money sometimes in your training to make your business succeed. You know, Chris Mazzelli talks to our students usually once a year. And he knows the people that are here, right? They're talented. And he always says the same thing. It's like, you know, the ball's in your court. It's like the only person who can stop you now is you. And that's assuming you're going to put the work in. That's assuming you're going to work hard at it. And that's why I say to you, a lot of what's considered talent is really work. And I believe that brilliance, people who are brilliant are people who are obsessed with their work. They're obsessed with it. So make a schedule and make it realistic. Do not make it idealistic, okay? This should work. You know, you guys all have busy lives, so make it a real thing that you can really do. And schedule it. And schedule it at a time that works for you, and schedule it at a place that works for you. It's like, you know, a room with a view. It's like some people like it quiet, that's the way they like to write, and so let it be that. Some people like to write in bars and cafes. Whatever works for you, do it and schedule it so that you've got two pipelines going. One is the refinement of stuff that you've already performed, like where everybody is now here in the room, and the other is new material. So you're always working on new material, and you are always working to refine the material that you have. And I want to tell you this, folks. The best thing in the world that can happen to you is when this becomes work. And by the way, that's also when the nerves start to go away. Is when it's just your job. This is my job. This is what I do. Okay, I couldn't do. If you know, if you come in and you're scheduled here, and I say, you know, Penny, I'm just not feeling it. You know what I mean? I'm not feeling it. I'm sorry. I'll call you when I'm feeling it. I wouldn't be here. Okay, this is my job. I write comedy with people. I can't feel it. I can't wait to feel it. I gotta work. And that's the way you want it to be. You know, and it's very interesting because oftentimes people who have, and almost everybody does, have another job of some sort, even if it's like a stay-at-home mom is a job, or whatever your job is. And I'll say, you know, do you get nervous there? And they're like, no, of course not. You know, I don't get nervous there. That's crazy. You know, it's just my job. Well, that's what this should become. It should just be let this become your job. Writing and performing comedy, let that become your job. And do it. Schedule it and do it. There's one other thing I want to say about performing and writing for that matter. It's really good to have a comedy buddy. It can really help you in the open mics, just to like help you get there, is to go with somebody that you like, so that the two of you are going. And the other great thing about having a comedy buddy is that you can get, you know, if it's somebody you see eye to eye with, you can be good feedback sources for each other. Even if the open mic is, you know, totally dead, you've got somebody there that you're simpatico with, who may very well have, you know, good insights into what happened. That can make this a lot easier. If you find somebody that you feel, and you know, not necessary, but it can be a good thing, especially in the beginning. It can help you get to these places. training, performing, writing. And it takes all three of those things to get undeniably good. And when that happens, you'll work. There is no such thing as an undiscovered comedian. Does not exist. Okay. So I have this thing of Van Gogh over there. All right. Titan of the art world. Right. Painting of his goes up for sale. It's just a matter of how many tens of millions of dollars it's going to sell for. All right. In his life, he sold one painting. And he sold it to his brother, who I think was looking for a humane way to get his brother some money so he could eat. And that can happen. But it can't happen in comedy because they laugh. Even if you're the weirdest dude, whoever, there's nobody stranger than Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman was bizarrely strange. And he was a huge star. If you guys see the first episode of Saturday Night Live, the music guys were, the music guys knew their stuff. The sketches sucked. And the one funny thing was Andy Kaufman, who was hilarious and who was lip syncing the theme song of Mighty Mouse. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious. So they laugh. And because they laugh, there's no such thing as an undiscovered comedian. People don't wake up 50 years later and go, that guy we saw at the Ha Ha Hut 50 years ago? Now I've been thinking about those jokes. I think they're funny. It doesn't happen. They laugh. And that's a great thing for us in all ways, because that enables us to really hone our work so that it gets undeniably good. Is that our metric system is so clear. They laugh or they don't. It's a big laugh or it's a little laugh. It's a joke. In the beginning, at the stage that you guys are in, you do not need agents and managers. At this stage of things, they can't do anything for you at this stage of things. They become important after you kind of get established. And happily, you don't need them. You don't need them to get booked in clubs. You don't need them at all. Again, when you start getting undeniably good, men in suits will appear. And further down the line, they can be crucial for your career as an actor and as a writer. And if there's big negotiations going on for your live appearances. But you have you're fortunate in that you don't need them as you're moving up. You don't need them. They're also booking agents, and those are, here, let me just tell you what they are. An agent, the job of an agent is to get you work. Is to get you work as an actor, to get you work as a writer, as a comedian, to get you work now. That's their job. The role of a manager overlaps that, but a really good manager has another role. A really good manager is someone who strategizes on how to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. So, in addition to being concerned about getting you work, they're concerned about getting you where you want to be. Woody Allen was a writer. He was a writer very early on in his life. And there was a wonderful comedy team called Nichols and May, Mike Nichols and Elaine May. And he wanted to write for them. They were really smart and they were really funny. So he found out who their manager was, and he submitted material for them. And the manager, who actually just died, Jack Rollins, he lived to be 100 years old. He really loved the material and wanted to meet with Woody, even though they didn't accept outside submissions. They worked improvisationally, like they came out of the Chicago improv scene, and the way they developed their sketches was through improvisation. They didn't have writers writing for them. But Jack really liked the writing, and he met with Woody Allen, and he said to him, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to direct movies. That's really what I want to do." And Jack said, "All right, I'll take you there. You're going to be a stand-up comic." And Woody Allen was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And Jack was like, "I know what I'm talking about." And Woody Allen had no interest in being a stand-up comic at all. And there's a great, what used to be the Duplex down around Christopher Street. It's the present Duplex didn't used to be it. It was on 55 Grove Street. It's a little hole-in-the-wall place, which is where Woody Allen and Barbra Streisand, I mean, the people who debuted there, if you go there up on the second floor, it's unbelievable to think who performed there. And that's where Woody Allen did his first stand-up. And the guy who was managing it went to Jack, and he said, "I think you better go there with your client. I think your client needs you." And he said, "Why do you think that?" He said, "He told me." He said, "I make a great deal of money. I'm a television writer, and I will pay you for a full house and tons of drinks if I can leave." He wanted to get out of there. He didn't want to do it. He was trying to buy his way out. It's like, who do I have to blow to get out of this gig? And Jack Rollins held his hand. He was back. He held onto Woody Allen's hand to comfort him and to make sure he didn't leave. And when they announced his name, he kind of pushed him out on stage. That's a manager, okay? He saw that stand-up was how Woody Allen was going to become a film director, and he was totally right. And that's what a really good manager does. They're strategists. Okay, then they're booking agents, and these are the people who book the clubs around the country. And if you've got a club, let's say in Cleveland, you can't know the whole talent pool, so they rely on bookers who do know the talent pool, and they know the club, and they know the sensibility of the club, and they know the kind of comedians the manager of that club likes, and their job is to bring comedians and the club bookers together, and they're called booking agents. You have like 15, 18 minutes of really good material and some experience emceeing, and you've got a good 7-minute video. Put yourself forward to those people. They're looking for you. You got to wait till you're ready. And again, all of this information is readily available just on the internet. But that's how you start getting booked at clubs outside of the city. Certain major chains, like the Improv, have their own internal booking. They do, but it's the same deal. I mean, you can reach out to them. The internet is just, it's mind-boggling. And what's so cool about it is that stand-up comes across really forcefully on video. It's a great medium for stand-up. So when a manager is seeing, they're feeling like, I'm getting a really good sense of who, they get the confidence to book someone that they don't know by virtue of how effective they are in video, which is cool. Questions? Penny.
That's okay. I had a couple, but I forgot because I was so busy writing. So it's okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So when you learn how to do the open mic, what is like the standard that they will pay you? I know.
At an open mic?
Yeah.
0.
0.
Yes, that's
Okay, I
standard,
mean,
by
not-
the way. That's,
Okay, I'm talking
you
about
can
when,
absolutely count on that.
say a
You-
headliner.
You
No,
will get nothing.
say a headliner wants you to do an opening act for them. What is the minimum? Like they're like, oh, I want to give you $100. Is that just to
That's
get the time?
generous.
That's generous.
Yeah, that's generous. In this city, that would be very, very generous.
Wow. Okay.
I'm saying,
For the 20 minutes. For the 20 minutes.
no, when you open, here, let me, that's a good question, okay. In the city here, very often, a stand-up who's headlining will want 3 and even 4 people to open for them. So nobody here, they're not doing 20 minutes, they're doing like 10 minutes. It's when you get booked into clubs that you're doing 20 minutes as the opening act. And people make a living from that. I mean, they do. You got to move up in the ranks. But there are people that you and I have never heard of who are making very nice livings on the road. But that's different than here.
Right. So here, $100 is good.
It's madness.
Okay. But the point is just to get the stage time, not really so much as the money.
To get the stage time, to get the video,
Okay.
to make that connection with that headliner.
Okay.
So when the headliner may be headlining in a club where there's an opening act and a middle act, they'll want you for that, and then you will get paid for it. It's totally worth it, completely worth it. You need to have, folks, let me address this. In order to do this, you really either need to have you need a survival situation. You need something that's going to generate enough money, and that could be, anything, including a marriage, so that your bills are going to need to be paid. They're going to be paid because your apprenticeship is long. It's much longer than it is for an actor. An actor with good training should start getting work after 2 years. That would be very rare for a comedian. I mean, Steve Martin has a really good book about his stand-up career called Born Standing Up. And that opens by saying it took me 10 years to learn how to do stand-up comedy. I spent another 2 years refining what I had learned, and I spent the next 6 years being wildly successful. And that's, the conversations I've had, like with the managers at Gotham, I want you guys to know about them, because we were talking about, I can't remember who it was, with the guy who books over there, and he was saying she's really somebody to watch. She's been doing it now for about 7 years. Okay, and she's on the brink of something, and that's 7 years that's 7 years of working hours. So the period of apprenticeship, and I don't mean pay your dues. It has nothing to do with paying your dues. It has to do with really mastering this thing. Okay, they don't care how long you've been. Nobody cares at all how long you've been at this. They're not looking for you to pay your dues. They're looking for someone to entertain the audience. And that takes time. So you got to set your, this is not something that you want to look for as an income quickly, because it's not going to happen quickly. Any other questions? All right, if you have them, I'm here. Okay, good night, everybody. Good work.